What's up? Talking about training programs today. All right. One of the most exciting topics in the coffee industry. I say that sarcastically, but I am kind of serious because this is something that I realized is incredibly important, but it's taken me almost 2.5 years to realize. The reason that I have Smooth SpongeBob here is because I feel like when people talk about training programs, this is what they imagine, this like very NPC character, robotic actions that are associated with these types of things. But you have to get rid of this. You have to get rid of this idea in your mind that training programs are just like not worth it, or they ruin the art of coffee. Instead, my goal with this presentation is to abolish some of the ideas that you all might have about like corporate industry that have implemented these sort of things within the business. And part of the way that I structured this was based off of a class that I took from a woman named Diana Manatsakyanyan. I took one of her classes, so that I'm butchering your last name, but I took one of her classes at Coffee Fest, and it was great. It gave me this idea, and some of the information is some of the framework is based off of her class that she instructed at Coffee Fest. So just wanted to give her a quick shout out so it didn't seem like I'm just like ripping off of. All right, disclaimer. Really get into things, okay? I am not an expert coffee entrepreneur. I actually fucking hate that word entrepreneur now because it's gotten so diluted and carries such a negative connotation with it that I hate it. But I'm not going to make you $1 million. Okay. I'm a bit over 2 years into my coffee professional experience, and I can only speak on my own personal account of things that have helped me. That does not necessarily mean it's going to give you the same results. You still have to put the work in. I can only do so much to point you in the right direction, as well as provide you with some resources that will help you along the way. Okay. This is the basic framework of how I'd like to structure. This is going to be a multiple part series, but there's multiple reasons why training programs in coffee shops are important. One of them is to uphold the standards. So you want to discuss your company values. If you're the shop or the roaster, you want to give them your story and your mission. Why? Because customers connect with a strong story, and people also want to be a part of the business that they patronize. Part of the reason why people buy a product is because they feel a sense of community with it. Then there's hospitality, operations, and then what we're going to focus on today is sales. Again, this unfortunate title that everyone hates, but really does matter. Are you a barista? Well, congratulations. You're in sales. Most of you are probably having this fellow's response over here. Maybe one or two of you might be having this guy's response over here, but I would imagine that the reason that you got into working as a barista is not so you could work in sales. But whether you like it or not, you are in sales. You are representing the company that you are making the coffee for. You are representing the roaster that you are buying the coffee from. That is similar to a sales position. Recently, I read this book called The E-Myth. Everyone should read that book if they're looking to start their own business, by the way. But it discusses how most people are very quick to poo-poo the idea of McDonald's, how it's overrated, corrupted, or not all that impressive. But what most people forget is that McDonald's is one of the largest and most impressive businesses created to date. They have a precedent in their product and employees that everyone expects, okay? You can make the argument that McDonald's is corrupt. You can make the argument that McDonald's has single-handedly wiped out farmland across the country. I might even agree with you on some of that. But if you're going to open up your own business that you're planning on franchising, or even if you're not, you should still approach it as a franchise in a similar way, because one day you want to be able to sell your business. You want to be able to have the option to sell your business and retire. That's a great thing that you can do one day after you've worked your entire life. And if you have your cafe set up in a system that doesn't require you to be there 24/7, it's a lot more attractive for people that are looking to buy a business. Okay, I can speak for that firsthand. It's part of the reason why I wanted to buy Maiden. back to the McDonald's thing. A McDonald's burger tastes like a McDonald's burger, whether you are in Japan, America, or Europe. That's very difficult. It's not fine dining. It's not a Michelin star restaurant, but it's exactly what you expect every time. If you are looking to create a franchise model, you must have to remove this notion that places like these are beneath you. There's this quote from the E-Myth that you might not even realize. It's that you need to work on your business instead of in it. Have you guys ever heard of this? Well, when you're opening a coffee shop, you are no longer a barista. You are a business owner. You need to be able to create time for yourself to work on the business that can help it grow or help you get better as an individual. If any of you are like a retired tech or finance bro, you can just completely disregard this presentation. You can just click away now, honestly. I'm sure that part of the reason why you just want to have a coffee shop is just to have a coffee shop. But if you're like me and you want to make money off of your business that you're also passionate about, then pay attention and just stay on this. You are not some slimeball life insurance salesman rep looking to make money off of grandma. Okay. Remember, we're trying to abolish these corporate titles that we have set up in our mind. I had a call with somebody that I knew within the industry when I first took over Maiden, and I was essentially asking him how I can separate myself from the competition, what I can focus on, and also asked him about acquiring clients, which is sales. And he didn't answer my question directly. He just gave me a story about his father, who was a piano salesman. And his goal as a piano salesman was not to sell pianos, it was to help people in purchasing pianos. Whether it was from him or other people, he built up a reputation within his area, and everyone would go to him when about to purchase a piano. He would give them his honest advice, regardless of whether it was from him or other people. Now, besides that being extremely admirable, it seemed to have led him to have a lot of success in his career. It might not have made him tens of millions of dollars, but I think people forget about this idea of your name being a large part of your reputation, and how if you can be an honest salesperson or business owner in general, that holds a lot of weight to it, and you gain a lot of respect for that. If your goal, again, is to assist people in their purchasing, whether it's from you or somebody else, I think that leads to more sales in the end, because people know that you're not just trying to pressure them into a decision that they don't feel comfortable with. You're actually assisting them in that decision making. And sometimes that means that they don't buy that product. And a lot of times, even in my own experience, I've talked to people that have just helped me in certain situations. And down the line, if I ever make a purchase of a piece of equipment or anything that they can offer me, I go to them, because I know that they genuinely want to help me in my career, and I want to do the same. I also think this is going to be a rarer thing as we progress in the next 10 to 20 years with the advancement of everything. Everyone is looking to start their own course or their own online community, all right, that they're charging extremely high prices for when there's really no value in them at all. Back to the baristas. When you are speaking with a customer, they might be asking you about a coffee or an additional product on the shelf. Step one is to know that product. If it's a coffee, drink the coffee. Make sure you know what it tastes like. Make sure you know different qualities about that coffee, what separates it from a normal cup of coffee. What I like to do is include all of this information. This is our most recent, this is from Maiden. This is my coffee roasting company. This is our most recent single origin that we just put out. And I include this information on every back of bag that we sell. And the reason that I do this is to essentially answer any questions that I think the customer will ask. Now, obviously, it seems pretty confusing, and there's also not that much information on the back of this, but most of the customers are going to be asking you about this and about this too. But mostly about process and tasting notes, okay? It's like beginning to intermediate coffee drinker, I would say. Most of them are just going to say, oh, this tastes like that. Awesome. And then they might ask you a question about like, oh, what does process mean? Or like, what do you mean rose? How can a coffee taste like rose and black tea and melon? And really, you can go on as intricate of an answer as possible. But what you could say is, Okay, so here's an example, right? So if a customer comes up to you and says, like, how does this taste like black tea, rose, and melon? What you could say is, well, in this region of Ethiopia, the altitude is fairly high, 2,190 meters above sea level. This forces the coffee to develop for a longer period of time, and that builds up the complexity in a cup. Ethiopian coffees are known for having traditionally very light and floral flavor notes, and that in combination with the high altitude gives this coffee its uniquely light mouthfeel floral taste. And they might say, oh, that's interesting. What about this process? What is natural process? You could say, well, two main processed coffees are washed and natural. Traditionally, washed goes hand in hand with a lighter tasting coffee, but natural goes hand in hand with a more funkier, heavier body, complex cup. What's unique about this coffee is even though it's a natural process, it's still a very light tasting coffee, which to me, as the person who contracted this coffee and roasted it, I found that very unique. It's part of the reason why I wanted to offer it. And to them, immediately they could say, oh, that's very interesting. And they can take that information and then apply it to the next coffee shop that they buy coffee from. And they're always going to remember the conversation that you guys had because you taught them something that they did not know about that product. They now have left with a decent amount of information. They might, next say, oh, that's cool. Well, they'll see the farm name and they'll probably most likely just be like, oh, that's cool. I know the farm name. That's a little bit more connection within the community. I know this is a light roast. What's varietal? What are varietals, right? That's something that I think is going to become more commonplace in the next 5 years or so in coffee. There's already been multiple studies come out about how much varietal, cultivar, terroir, it's all essentially the same thing, however you want to say it, plays into a much larger role in how the coffee tastes. Rob Hoos, recently come out with a book called Cultivar, where he performed some experiments on different varietals of coffee and seeing how they related to one another. I haven't read it yet, but I probably will, and maybe we'll go over it one day. But with these varietals specifically is that they are a locally selected sub-variety of Ethiopian heirloom, which is just like the specific genotype, right? Developed in the 70s at Jima Agricultural Research Center for resistance to the coffee berry disease. So a lot of times people will breed coffee varietals, coffee plants, to create certain genotypes that are resistant to certain diseases, but also taste good. The prefix, so the 74 that's in front of all these varietal names that you see right here, just indicates that these coffees were they were cataloged in 1974. The trees are short and compact, and they have small leaves and cherries as well. So the coffee beans themselves are pretty small. That pretty much covers all of it. People will ask you this eventually. You will have these interactions with customers. And guess what? The more that you can talk to them about this, the more that they feel inclined to come back because they know you know what you're talking about. They know that you are willing to have the conversation with them. They know they're not a nuisance to you. Now they feel better about themselves because they know about coffee that they can tell their friends about or go to other coffee shops about. Those varietals mean that they discovered in 1974. That's kind of cool. Well, maybe it's not that cool, but I think it's pretty cool. And I think that as a customer going into these places, if you're able to talk to them about these new coffees that have come out or these single origin coffees, they feel a sense of community in that. They feel like they're a part of something bigger. They feel like they have a connection with this brand now, with this coffee shop now. Ultimately, what I believe that this sale is going to come back to, that's going to lead you to more tips, more pay, more regulars that are coming in on a consistent basis, is the interaction with the customer. Okay, the coffee quality can only take you so far. Coffee could be the best tasting coffee in the world, but if you go to a coffee shop and they treat you like shit, you feel like a nuisance and you're never going to want to go back to that coffee shop. I know this for a fact, because I know people that will go to coffee shops that hate the coffee, but they like the people that work there. They like the conversations that they have every weekend when they go there, or they like the friend group that they meet up with there every single weekend. whatever it is. The coffee quality and the product can only take you so far. There's a guy called Brewed by Jay on Instagram. Again, check him out. He does a good job at driving this point home of how customer service overrides coffee quality. And again, I can account for that firsthand. I'll end this presentation with a personal story that I think will drive this point home. So I used to be a bartender at this local bar in my area. I started as a busser, bar back, then a bartender. And this whole time that I worked there, I never drank alcohol, which was, it was weird if you're going to work behind a bar. But I was never a fan of drinking. And a lot of times I would have customers ask me questions that I didn't know how to answer. And I would just be honest with them. I'd just say like, well, I don't drink, or, I have celiac disease, so I can't drink any of these beers. And most of the time it's like a joke. It's like, oh my God, it's hilarious. Like whatever, but other times they're just like, why are you working? So I would always have to ask other people that I worked with. I'd always ask my GM. I would, catch on to certain patterns of drinks that people are buying. And if they say, what do you recommend? I'd say, well, a lot of people like this drink, whatever it was. I'd have to go the extra mile in order to find out more information on that drink itself. I couldn't just taste it myself. I also worked in an environment where I would see the worst of people after drinking, so that just kind of turned me off from it altogether. But when new drinks would come on the menu, I would talk to my general manager. I would talk to the regulars that were there. I would make sure that they told me their 100% honest opinion of that drink. When we got a new beer on tap, I'd ask, is it a lager or is it a Pilsner? What's the ABV? Where's the brewery based? This was very hard for me, especially in dealing with customers, because I was always very introverted, and I was not, again, like I always maintained this attitude that I was like better than people, but I was just self-conscious and didn't want to expose myself. As soon as I made the connection that knowing this information can both help the customer in making their decisions and also make you more money at your job, which is not a bad thing to want, I started to really start putting more effort forth. It just connected for me after that. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure how else to explain it, but that was kind of the final straw that broke the camel's back, that forced me to just start going and working a little bit harder at my job each day. If this is still difficult for you to do and it's just not resonating with you, the final attempt that I'll give in making this kind of drive this home for you is just imagine that you're the customer and you go to a coffee shop and you want to learn more about a coffee, and you have two different shops that you go to, same coffees. One of them you ask, they barely answer you. They don't care. There's a line out the door. They don't want to be bothered. Do you want to go back to that coffee shop after, compared to the one where you go in, you talk to the barista, ask them questions, they're there, they're happy to see you, they're smiling, they have all these little micro actions that are very committed to you as a customer? I, for one, would want to go back to the coffee shop that does their job well and goes the extra mile and wants me to feel like I'm a part of that shop, right? Even if they don't know that much about the product, if they're just very welcoming and very happy and wanting to, assist in any way that they can, I still want to go back to the one that makes me feel good about being there, compared to the person who might know a plethora of knowledge, or a plethora, however you want to say it, plethora of knowledge. I still want to go back to the one that makes me feel welcome. Being able to have both, knowing the product and being kind, you are a superhero. You will do well. You will be a good barista, and you probably will own your own coffee shop one day. So that's where I'll end this.